My 2024 buck story. The only buck I saw this year while hunting. Got lots of trail camera pictures, but this is the only one I saw while hunting. My favorite day to hunt has always been the morning of the time change, which happens to be the first Saturday in November and is also typically peak rut here in Michigan and other places through the Midwest. And I was super excited. Of course, fall behind, you set your clocks back an hour, you get an extra hour of sleep. So I'm up bright and early and well rested because of the time change. This year was like any other. I was excited. I got out there early. I'm hunting in a box blind. I'm not in a tree stand. I've had 2 reconstructive surgeries on my left shoulder and 1 on my right shoulder in the last 2 years, and I can no longer use a compound bow. I don't have the structure and muscle strength to use one, so I'm using a crossbow now. So I'm hunting from a box blind, which is a great spot that I have. We call it the point blind, and it's a lovely spot at the point of a pines at the end of a ridge that looks down into 2 valleys. And I got out on that morning of the time change and watched the sun come up. It was beautiful. I had a couple of deer walk through early that I could hear but I couldn't see. And then shortly after the break of light, I had a small fawn come up in front of me. Watched him with my binoculars for a minute. It was a button buck, and I was kind of bored, so I got out my camera and I started filming this button buck. And as I was filming this button buck, I'm looking at the camera and I'm watching in the camera, and I noticed something move behind him. So I start looking, and sure enough, it's another deer. And as I'm watching, I see this other deer move around, and I see him move his head. Holy cow, it's a buck. It's actually a nice 2.5-year-old 8-point that I had seen on my trail camera in a different spot, but I recognized the buck. So I suddenly, went all buck fever. Let's get in mode, right? And I watched him for a minute, and I kept the camera rolling. And then I suddenly realized I need to put this camera down and pay attention to what's going on here so that I can shoot this thing. And I put the camera down. So like I said, I'm in a box blind. I've got a crossbow that is probably 20 years old. I don't know exactly. Cal actually bought it at a auction for 50 bucks. Or maybe it was a garage sale. Either way, garage sale or an auction for 50 bucks. A couple of years ago, and it's an old Horton crossbow, compound style, not the recurve. It's actually a compound style, but it has a rifle stock on it. In fact, there's a picture of it here. It has a rifle stock and a scope, but it doesn't have the modern safety features that we have on crossbows nowadays. It doesn't have any kind of thumb protection or anything to keep your hand out of the way of the rail. So I just gave it away. You guys know where this is going. So I did everything right. I did everything perfect. I stayed back in the blind in the shadows. Buck's walking straight towards me. He looked up at the blind a couple of times because obviously they know it's there. It stays there year round. It's a permanent blind. And I did everything right. The wind was in my favor. I also had my little can of dough and heat that I keep in the window. Every time I go out in the blind, I set that in the windowsill, and I take the cap off it. So I set that out. I'm watching these deer, right? The button buck kept looking behind him at this 8-pointer, and then he decided he was going to run off. Didn't want to have anything to do with him, and this 8-point came right up in front of me, 24 yards, broadside, wide open. It was as perfect as could be. Crossbow sighted perfectly. Well, the blind sits kind of facing northwest, and he had come up from the north, walking south towards me. The wind was coming out of the west, and he had turned and was facing, straight west. But the way I was situated in the blind to get out the front window, I'd have really had to turn hard and contort myself to shoot right-handed. I could have shot left-handed from there, but I would have had to move over on the seat and would have made some noise, and I didn't want to make any noise and spook him. So I decided to go right-handed and go out the side window and shoot around to the front where he was standing. Well, somehow during that whole episode of taking the crossbow and going out the side window, yep, that's right, I rolled my thumb up onto the rail of that crossbow. So used to shooting shotguns, rifles, I got excited, wasn't paying attention, and I got my thumb right up over top of the edge of that rail. But I got on him, had a perfect hold, made sure my limbs were clear, because I've had that mistake happen before. So everything was good and clear, wide open, buck standing broadside, staring off to the west. I get right on him, pull the trigger, and whoo! I got this sting, and the arrow does a spiral. Took me a second to figure out what happened. Lucky for me, I was wearing jersey gloves. So when the string hit my thumb, it took the glove and slid, luckily, and didn't take my thumb off. But it hopped up over my thumb, came down onto the rail, slammed the bolt down, broke the knock. The arrow went spinning in a spiral, hit the deer, but I couldn't tell. I didn't have the video running, so I couldn't tell exactly where I hit him. But he ran about probably 20 or 30 feet and stopped. And I thought, ooh, I got him good. His tail was down. Well, then he just started walking, and he walked all the way down the valley that he came up, and then he turned about 100 yards out and walked back to the west and headed right back out and walked as far as I could see him. I was able to watch him for probably 3 or 4 minutes as he just slowly walked away. So I, of course, waited, didn't know what had happened, didn't know where I'd hit him for sure. I knew that the shot had gone funny because the string had hit my thumb and hopped up over it. So I don't know if this has happened to any of you guys, but if it has, let me know in the comments. But this thing was he was just walking away, like undeterred, as if nothing had really happened. He was just confused. So then I thought, well, I must have missed him. Well, I waited and waited, and I texted Cal and I said, hey, come on out and help me look for this thing. I shot one, don't know what happened, don't know where I hit him. So when he got out there, I told him the story of what happened and how I had got my thumb in the way of the string and the arrow flew funny. And we went down there to where that buck was standing, and all we found was a clump of freshly shaven white hairs. So I either caught him on the brisket in front of his legs, or hit him low, right behind the legs, one or the other. Either way, the shot went low, shaved off a bunch of white hairs. We tracked for about 50, 60 yards to start with, and you could see his tracks clearly where he had kicked up the leaves as he was departing, and there was no blood anywhere. There wasn't a speck of blood. Well, there was a couple drops right where he was originally standing, but that was it. And then he walked that whole time after his little run to start with. He was walking, and I tracked that for a while, and not a speck of blood. I knew it wasn't a good hit. I could tell by the way that he reacted and by his walk. And the next day, the evening, so that was November 3rd, the morning of November 3rd, about 8 a.m. And the evening of November 4th, I got a picture of him on the trail camera. And just proving that he's alive and well, doing fine. And I haven't seen him since. Now, I know I didn't kill him, and I don't know if the neighbors killed him, but that was the only buck that I saw this whole season while hunting. So I have several trail camera pictures of several different bucks, but that was the only one I actually saw this entire season. I'm a little disappointed. I started a new job, so I wasn't able to hunt quite as much as I normally do, but that was this year's buck for 2024, and although I did everything right all the way up until the shot, I flubbered up that shot, and that's bow hunting, right? Even using a crossbow, and I know there's a lot of stigma out there about crossbows, but even using a crossbow where 24 yards should have been a pretty simple, straightforward shot. No reason to miss. Apparently when you stick your thumb up in the way of the string, it makes things go bad. So that was my story from this year. If you guys have any similar stories, I'd love to hear about them. If you've had such an experience, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. Certainly I want everyone to be successful, and I'd like to be successful too, but it doesn't always work out that way. And this year was no exception. So today's December 16th. 16th? Yeah, today's December 16th. So we have the rest of this year to use our crossbows to shoot bucks, and we also are in our late antlerless season now. So we can shoot antlerless deer with a gun, with a firearm. And then January's got a few special seasons this year that we may or may not participate in. But anyway, for all you guys, good luck out there. Be successful. Shoot straight. Keep the fire going. Oh, by the way, if you like this video, please hit that like button. And make sure you come back and join us tomorrow. So hit the subscribe button and then hit that notification bell, because there's a new video every single day at 3 p.m. All the way up through Christmas, from December 1st to the 25th. So we're keeping this rolling. There will be a new video tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. So hit that notification bell, get notified when a new video comes out. You can come back tomorrow and watch the next one. If you haven't seen the previous ones, go back and watch everything else. I think there's about 500 videos in here. So love you all. Appreciate everything you do. Appreciate all the support. Like, comment, subscribe. Shoot straight. Keep the fire going.